here today just to talk about some custom containers, what we do here, how you could be successful at your own house. So we're dealing with someone who doesn't know much about plants.
Wait a minute here. No, actually, the thing that's great about coming to Rohr's is if you're like me and you know you want something beautiful, but you have no idea how to achieve it, you come, you ask.
That's right.
But the most important thing is you need to find out, is it going to be sunny or is it going to be shady in the place you're going to put your plants?
So that is the most important question. So whenever you are thinking to yourself, I'd like to do some flowers in this corner of my deck or on my front porch, you need to know, but the first question that we'll ask you when you come in here is, number one, what kind of light do you get? And most people are like, oh, I have sun all day. But when you really look at your space, you typically have morning sun. So morning sun would be morning until maybe like 11, 12, or you have afternoon sun, which would be like that same time, like 11 or 12 into the afternoon. So that is where the key difference is. So if I have this is all sun here. If I have this sunny pot in an area that's like, say, on a porch that maybe gets a few hours of morning sun, this stuff will not bloom well. And vice versa, this is shade. If I have this on a afternoon sun, it's going to bake. And so it's always going to look like burnt and off color. So it will never do what it's supposed to do. So that is your first step. So if you're thinking about doing pots in an area you've never done it, just kind of look at your space a day or two. Look at it in the morning and then look at it like maybe like in the middle of the afternoon and just kind of see what light requirement, what you have there. So that is number one. So, and then once you figure that out, then everything else it's really art. Everybody has a different taste of what they want, and that's where the joy and the fun. Every year you can change it out, and that's what's fun about it.
Normally, when you pick something for the shade area, can you get color? Because I think sometimes people think if it's a shade area, you're not going to get all the bright colors.
And that is true. I mean, to an extent, that is true. But to be honest, shade, like all of us girls here, shade is our favorite. So if anybody who you can get, I mean, you can see this is shade here, and I do have something big on the ground that's going to go in here. But when you do shade, you do definitely get flower color in there. It's not like flowers are not an option, but you get a lot of color depth and change just with leaves. So you bring in the red with another leaf color. Whereas you can see the sun pot, almost everything we has a flower on it. Yeah. So it's different, but a shade can be just as beautiful, if not more beautiful in the long run. So,
all right, how do we start?
All right, so starting. So you always start with your big first, and then you need to look at your pot where it's at your house, and you have to say, okay, is this going up against the wall? So am I planting this from the back side and working forward, or am I going to start in the middle? Can you see your pot all the way around? Most people start in the back. Most people's pots are, backed up against your house or, a railing or something like that. So I already have dirt in here. So you want to start with good potting soil. Never, ever want to plant in topsoil or mulch. You always want to use potting soil. So you always want to start with potting soil. So just something that drains well. You don't want anything to sit wet.
Is this a tropical plant?
That is a tropical. Yeah, this is a mandevilla. So you could do one of two things. You could plant it just like it is right here, so it's kind of going up, or you could take this little guy out here, and then it would just kind of be more like a bush. It would kind of fill in and kind of trail. It kind of has the life of its own. It would kind of trail over. Now, we have our own potting soil here. That's what we use here. But any potting soil would be fine. But you kind of put your big stuff in, fill your pot up to a pretty good level. And then after you kind of place your big stuff, then you're just kind of messing around with it, to be honest. I mean, you want to kind of graduate down. So your tall is in the back, then your next step would be your more moderate, and then we're going to work with stuff that's going to flow over. So if you came in here, that's kind of how we would start. We pick your big thing first and then kind of work your way out. So as far as what I have that is upright, it's all this stuff here. So if I were doing this, then I would just you just kind of play with it a little bit. So kind of set stuff in. This right here I really think is one of the most important things when you're doing a planter. So you have a lot of green and a lot of color, but sometimes you just need a base just to kind of break up that color a little bit, get a different texture in there. So this is a coleus, but there's a lot of different options to do. So once I laid it out, then I would say, okay, I like that. So then I would plant my next level here.
Okay, don't kill me, but
Okay.
I'm the kind of person who's going to tell you that this to me looks like weeds.
Okay. That's fine. And if that's how you feel, then that's fine. That's where it's all suggestive. Some people would think that. Yeah, I think once this starts growing, it kind of like infiltrates, so it looks kind of wildflowerish. But that's where it's a team sport. I tell you, like, this is easy. This will do well. You don't have to clean it.
Okay.
You
could convince me.
That is a draw for some people. But if you're like, no, I just don't like it, then we would put that away and we would go find, not right now, but it's going to be tough right now. This is what I picked and this is what I'm using.
Okay, it's what we're going with.
Yeah, this is what we're going with.
Okay, and what you did right there. See, some people, when I first started gardening, I was so afraid to take a plant out of a pot like that.
Yeah.
You have to squeeze, right?
Their plants are so much tougher than people think. So yes, you just put your hand underneath it and just squeeze the pot and pull it right out. Sometimes when you pull a plant out of a pot, you have a large root system to it, and these are okay. But if you pull something out and it's solid roots, you might want to just pull the end off, kind of loosen it up a little bit. I'm just setting it really on top of my dirt, and then I'm going to fill back in. So my dirt is down about maybe 4 inches here. So I'm just kind of setting in, and I'll go back in and kind of fill into the top.
Yeah, don't be afraid of it, right?
Yeah, don't be afraid of it. I think most people think that they're so fragile.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to be a little bit careful with them, but they're tough. They're tough plants. So these are trays, and honestly, I mean, they can be expensive. Pots can be expensive. So a lot of times if you get a nice base of something you like, the trays are very inexpensive. So you can do a lot of your filling with some trays if you want to keep your costs down, or maybe you want to do like 2 really nice pots and some other pots that are a little bit on the less expensive side. So there's 3 plants in here. So just to kind of get that bright, kind of fun summer color through there, you're just gonna kind of pop them in. Now you could easily keep them all together, or you can separate them however you want to do it.
How do you know how many to put in? If you're not how do you know not to crowd?
Okay, there is no really overcrowding with pots. We plant them like they're done. That's how we do it. But I know how to clean stuff. Kind of minimize things when they're starting to get out of hand. But a regular homeowner might not know how to do that, that's why we're here. So if we help you design a pot, I would tell a customer, this plant right here, if it has a tendency to start getting tall and, you need to pinch that back. But if somebody's like, I don't want it to be that full, then honestly, they could put that in there, or, if they like this right here, they could put that in there and they could be done. You could be done. That'll all kind of fill in and you could be done. Or, and that's part of it too. Like I have a couple different things here, but a customer, I would say, kind of holds, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
do you like that? This is going to get crazy and huge. And some people are like, I don't want that. And so then we would pull this and then we'd say, well, how about this? What do you think about that? You kind of need that purple, kind of bring that, purple color in. And so it's all very generalized to whoever you're working with.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could pull that pink down. You have pink here. This has a little bit of pink in it. You could bring that down. Use both of those. And have all flowers. Have no other. This is just foliage color. Right. So we could go that direction. So one thing is about sweet potato vine is one of the most popular plants. People use it all the time, but it is aggressive, right? It can go back into your plants. It can choke stuff out. It gets huge and goes down. But to be honest with you, it is one of the easiest plants to clean or to make smaller. So if you have this here and it's just getting huge, you could go right in, just pinch that completely off. Take it completely off.
Wow.
Their plants are happier when they're cleaned, and like petunias in particular, they start getting real long. There's a point that you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so beautiful, and it does. But that's about the time where you need to start cutting them back. If you don't, a lot of people get that. It's like a weird dieback, say like July. Plants that hang down, they'll start hanging so low, and then you get this dead up top.
Yes.
And
yes.
so to keep that from happening, you just keep the weight off of the plant.
Okay.
So once your plant gets let's say your pot, is this tall. Once your plant gets like halfway to 3/4 of the way down the pot, that's a good time to kind of start bringing it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be all, just keep it right there. So, it starts growing a little further, just pinch it back, kind of bring it back up. It'll just kind of keep it not so heavy. It doesn't drag so much. So
see, that's why you ask a professional.
Yeah.
Because they can figure this all out for you.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it's
very quickly.
It's easy stuff to do, but it's, if you didn't do it, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
That's right.
And so honestly, our job here, whenever somebody would come in, it's just to find out how comfortable are you with plants. Do you want no maintenance? Do you like to go out morning coffee and clean your pots? If you do, we can tell you how to do that. So you could go right here, then you could be done.
And then you fill it up with more dirt?
Yep. I would fill up the backside with a little bit more dirt. You want your dirt to sit maybe like an inch below the rim of the pot, because it will settle. So you don't want it to settle too much, but that's about where you want to be. So in here, I have this coleus here. That's going to get bigger and kind of fill in this area and kind of break up all of your green. But, and then as far as fertilizing goes, I have a granular fertilizer. You could put that in there, and Matt will talk about that whenever he does the roses. But if you liquid feed, the first month I would say is the most important. So anything you mix with water, we sell something here called Jack's that we love, but anything that you mix with water you can use. If you fertilize it once a week for maybe the first 3-4 weeks, really get it going, then you're just more maintenance, watering, cleaning it. Then, it should do well then throughout the whole summer into fall.
How often do you have to water this?
This is a sun planter. So I would say it just depends on our summer, but at least I would say 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
So every other day, is not somewhere in that. When you water it, have you got like watering cans so you could visualize it? A pot this size would take probably like 1 2-gallon watering can. Give it the whole thing. So that the potting soil, when you use potting soil, that's what it get those roots to get wet, and then it does dry out fairly quickly. But that's what you want. You don't want it to sit wet. So that's what you'd want to do. Okay.
All right. Now we have the poor people in the shade. They don't get any sun.
It is not poor people. These are lucky. People. These are lucky people.
Okay, the lucky people who don't get burnt by the sun.
Yes, this is true. Okay, so same thing here.
A lot of times people have more shade in their yards.
They do.
Than they do sun. It's very true.
It is. It's true.
It's a huge pot.
It is a big pot. This is a big pot. So I just wanted to show someone how you could do a big pot, and you can do it minimally. Now, we did fill up this whole pot with potting soil.
I love it.
But if you have a pot this size and you don't want to fill it up with potting soil, you could go, this pot's probably 22 inches or so. You could get some big plastic pots and put it on the bottom, just to kind of take up some room. If you wanted to, some people, have a bag of mulch laying around, they could fill it halfway up with mulch. Okay. But you definitely want, in a pot this size, you definitely want about half the pot at least filled with soil.
Okay.
And then also too, this is something, you don't have to put new soil in every year. So whenever you pull your plants out in the fall, you can, next year, whenever you'd plant this, you'd have a good base for potting soil. So you would just be adding a little bit of new.
Is there drainage on these?
There is.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they all, that's another important thing too. They all have drain holes.
Okay.
An outside planter, you most definitely want it to have a drain hole.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So I have this fern here.
Oh my.
So this is our big.
Hello.
So yes.
Hello.
Now we can see no one. Yes. So here we go. So that's called a Kimberly Queen fern. Its growth habit is very upright. So because it's upright, then you can do a lot of things around it. So one nice thing about these ferns is you could be very minimal if you wanted to. You could do the fern. Yeah. You could get a nice big, like impatient hanging basket, put that in there, and an ivy. and be done. You don't, and you get a big impact with that for not very much, plant material. Or we're going to go a different route and we're going to use some different things in here. Thank you. So it's good to kind of fill your pot up halfway, put your big thing in there, and then put some more soil in. That way you're not pulling it out. You want to make sure, if you plant something big like this, you want to make sure you get it low enough. A lot of times people will put too much potting soil in and then put it in, and it sits up too high, and then it just looks awkward. Okay, so here is the fern. So I'm going to, so that you can let it go now. Kind of see how it falls here. So now this is what I picked to go in this pot. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use it all. So this is what I like together. So this is a hosta. So we actually, for shade planters, we do it all the time. There's certain perennials that do well in pots. Hostas do well in the shade. Perennial ferns will do really well in the shade because they're just more foliage.
Yeah, a lot of people have these in the ground.
Yes, and you could dig this up if you have one of these at home. You could dig them up and use it. But just the color combination of this with the green is beautiful. So I would start with my big. So that would be my big. And then this here is another coleus. It's just, this variety is called a concoleus. It's for more shade. So then I would probably put that in there. One thing about the coleus is you can kind of see, if you look in here, there's a flower coming up on that.
Yeah.
You don't want it to flower.
Okay.
When they flower, they kind of bolt and they start stretching and getting tall. So you don't want that to happen. Then it just starts looking weedy. So whenever you start to get that bloom coming up, you would just take it and you could just pinch it right back. And it'll keep it more short and squatty. And that's the way you want it to look.
Okay.
When it starts stretching, it gets real thin at the bottom. So, and then also if you have any like leaves at the base that just are looking ratty, just pinch them off. When a leaf starts to turn yellow or brown, it's never coming back. So you just need to get it off of there. Okay. So this is going to get a little bit taller. So I would put this maybe off, like kind of in the middle on the side. So, and then, like I said, this is just an area here where you're just going to kind of lay it out. If you have two pots, one pot might lay out a little bit different. All plants kind of have a different, growth habit to them. And, that one might be leaning a little bit more that way. You might have another one that's a little bit more upright.
And this is all based on whatever the person who's picking this asks you, right? I mean, if somebody comes in here and they say, yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
You'll just do it however they would like it.
That's what we try and tell people. Just because I like something, it's like a work of art, really. I'm not saying that's what this is, but I mean, your personal preferences are different. Right. Yeah. So, and some people don't like a foliage pot, and so if you didn't like all of the foliage here, instead of doing this, like I said, like this plant right here comes in multiple different colors, but bigger options. So you could use that in there just to get a little bit more color in there if you wanted to. But so now you're just and I honestly, a lot of times we'll plant something, and then once you're kind of in the middle of it, you're like, oh, I think actually I need to flip this around. And so you're going, say I'm doing the same thing. So I'm kind of going with my bigger stuff. And then this is a trailer, so I'll use a lot of this stuff more towards the end. So, but I mean, look, this is a begonia here.
Yeah.
So I'm using actually two different begonias. This is a begonia and this is a begonia, but this one doesn't flower. But just the leaf of it is just so beautiful. So, and shade planters also, they just don't require as much care. So watering, obviously, but you might water a shade planter maybe 2 times a week. So you just don't have to do quite as much to them. But yeah, so actually I brought all of this. I don't really think I'm going to need that because I'm pretty tight here. So you just never, you never know. But this is a really nice, easy plant. It's going to trail down. It's just easy.
And honestly, when you put the fern in there, I don't think you would think about putting all the other stuff in with it, but
Yeah.
but it certainly accents and changes the whole look of it.
It does. And sometimes shade, shade is typically dark. So you need something that's more vivid and light in a shade planter to kind of draw your eye back there.
Yeah.
So that's what that lime kind of does. You get like some color texture differences and it's kind of a, darker area instead of you just kind of missing it from the green. It does definitely draw your eye. So see, I mean, so honestly, at this point in time, you just kind of like, what direction do I want to go here?
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of play with it. So I think I want a little bit more flour up there. So I'm gonna put that in there. So yeah, it's done.
Is the watering the same on this?
Well,
and fertilizing?
Yes, the fertilizing would be the same. Ferns do like a lot more water than some things, but you're still in the shade. So if you water it well, maybe like twice a week, you would be good.
Okay.
So that's
a little easier.
It's a little bit easier,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And there's hardly any maintenance involved in a shade planter. So I mean, when your flowers are done, you can kind of pick those off. But other than that, your leaves really, unless they get damaged by some wind or someone rubs up against it, like I said, they're easy. So
yeah, very simple.
Yeah. But really, like I said, key is just asking the right questions for a customer.
Right.
But knowing, if you came in here and you said, I have this shade area, I'm gone a lot, I really don't have time, then, that's our job then to lead you to what would work for you. So that we want you to be successful with whatever you planned. So really that is our goal, is to make your plants look good. In turn, it makes you want to do plants again next year. If you have a bad experience, it's hard to want to do that again,
Mm-hmm. See, and I came in here knowing nothing, and I'm going to walk out of here and telling all my friends and family, look how special I am, what I created, right?
That's right.
Thanks to Rohr's Nursery.
Yeah. And Kristen.
Yeah.